waters, soft blush, and a light breeze through blooming petals. This is Bloom and Breeze. For this creative color challenge design, I'm creating a bracelet inspired by Palette 365 using fire polish beads, soft turquoise tones, and floral designs with a touch of whimsy. I'll show you what's included in this month's Bloom and Breeze collection, and then we'll get started on the tutorial. Before we get started with the tutorial, let's see what you're going to get in this month's collection. So the first thing that we get is some magnesite. These are going to be 8mm magnesite beads. They are in a turquoise color, so some of them are going to have some of these brown inclusions, and then others are going to be pretty much just that turquoise color. So you'll just get a assortment of that. You'll end up getting 8 beads of this one. And this is the star of the show. This is 12mm Amazonite beads, and they are faceted, so you can see that they're very, very sparkly in the facets and everything. You'll end up getting 3 of these guys, but these are 12mm beads that we'll be using in the project. And this is all the items that come in the project. We'll go through the rest of the beads here in the next clip. The next thing you get are 3mm fire polish beads, and these are like a turquoise color, but they have almost like a white, I guess kind of like a milky look to it. I keep throwing them all around the place. But they have like a little bit of a milky look to it, but it's that turquoise color. So it's a really pretty color. I can't get that one to stay in the little tray. But those are 3mm fire polish. You'll end up with a quantity of 8 of those. You'll get 5mm fire polish. These I'm just calling the color kind of a pinkish beige color. You can see that it is like a really, really light colored glass on the bottom, or like the first layer of glass, and then it's the wash that they have over it to make it kind of look almost like a snake skin in a way. That, with all the facets and everything, that's more of like a beigey brown color. So that's why I'm calling it the pink beige color. You'll end up with 4 of those. You'll get some 7mm fire polish also, and I'm calling this color turquoise crystal. And of course, like I've said in previous collections and stuff like that, that these are all beads from my personal stash. So if I don't have them labeled as far as the color and everything, and I know what it is because obviously this is fire polish, but if I don't have the colors labeled, then I just kind of name it whatever I have it named. But this is the 7mm turquoise crystal. You'll end up with 5 of those. And Kylie's trying to get on camera again. And then we get some ladybugs, which is kind of a popular item these days. I have some black ladybugs in my stash, so you'll get some ladybugs, and they have the same pattern on both sides. You'll end up with 4 of those ladybugs. And then we get some O beads. We've gotten some O beads in some of my previous collections, but this color just went so beautifully with this color palette. So this is O beads. This is in the color Pastel Patrol. You'll get about 52 of those. Then we move into our seed beads. These are all 3 Miyuki seed beads here. This is your 15-0 Miyuki seed bead. These are blush aligned crystal, and it is Miyuki's number 215. And I don't have the quantities written down. I want to say it was, I'll have the quantities like finalized in the packet and everything, but I want to say I was going to do 2 and then 4 and then I think 4 grams of this one too. It was something like that. I didn't have as many in my stash of these 2, so these 2 may be a little bit different of a number, but I'm pretty sure I was going to do 2 grams of the 15-0s. Did not realize I did not have that written down. This is your 11-0. This is Miyuki 11-0. It's Frosted Opaque Glazed Rainbow Lavender. And I really, really like these colors. These opaque glazed rainbow colors and stuff like that. I use these a lot in my tutorials, in my projects and everything. That one's Miyuki's number 4694. And then your 8-0 seed bead is the Duracoat Opaque Eucalyptus. And it's just a really nice dark green color. And that one's Miyuki's number 4481. Then we have the findings to get the bracelet completed. You're going to have some 4mm jump rings. These are stainless steel. You'll end up with a quantity of 10, so there's more than 10 sitting here right now, but you'll end up with a quantity of 10 of those. And notice how they're already open for you, so they'll be easier to use. And then your clasp for the bracelet is going to be this very pretty little pave crystal magnetic clasp. I'll pick one up, and you get 2 of these, so you can kind of see it. There we go. And see how sparkly crystal that is. So it's like an antique silver color. The metal is unknown, so I don't know for sure if it has metal in, or if it has nickel in it, if it has metal in it. And then you would just pull that apart. That one doesn't seem to want to pull apart right now for me. There we go. So there you go. So they just come together like that. So they're very pretty. I really like them. And then of course you're going to end up with your needle. You always end up with a size 11 needle unless the project needs something something different, like a 10 or a 12. And then you'll have your wildfire, the 0.006, and 5 yards of it, and you'll have it in the gray this time. So those are the items for the project, which is this guy. So we'll end up making a bracelet, and then there's the back side of it. So that'll be the items that you'll get in the collection for the item, or for the bracelet. So meet me back in just a moment and we'll see the remaining parts of the collection. Here are the first 12 extra items that you get in the Bloom Breeze collection this month. So we'll go through these 12, and then I believe there's 13, if I counted correctly, more to go. So let's go ahead and look at these really quickly. The first thing you'll end up getting 3 of these, and these are just little round discs. They're pretty thin, and they have just a single hole in them. So if I can find it, there we go. There's a hole for you, and they look the same on both sides. They have this little matted portion that have just little dots on them and everything. I just thought they were cute. It is black, so it's not that dark teal color, but at least it goes along with the black ladybugs that we have in our bracelet that we're making. Now this is Mayuki seed beads again. They are 11-ohs. I don't know the number of the seed bead, as it comes in these little baggies that I get on a yearly basis like this. So you'll get an approximately amount of 5 grams of this. There again, because I'm not quite sure exactly how much is in that bag, but I'll get it split up to where everybody gets a little bit. So it'll be somewhere around 5 grams on that. But it's a color that's almost like a jet color, but it's, I wouldn't say that's AB. I almost want to say that's like an iris color or something. Like it's a matted iris color or something like that. That's my guess, at least. So the next item you get is 13 of these guys. These are ginkgo beads. And you get, yeah, I said 13, and then in the color of this one is saturated dark teal. So it's like a matted dark teal color. And if you're not familiar with a ginkgo bead has 2 holes to it. So there's the 2 holes on the top, and then they come down through the bottom like that. And they're both the same on both sides. So that is a ginkgo bead, and that's the first of the colors of the ginkgos. Next item you get is infinity beads, and I just named this turquoise green because I'm not quite sure of the color name. But it is also a 2-hole bead. So these would work really well with super duos, I think, and then you can probably use them with your ginkgos also. So some neat bead woven designs can be used with that. You'll end up getting, how many of these? Infinity beads, you'll get 38 of these guys. Here's your second color of your ginkgos, and this color is called Aquamarine Full Celsian. So it's kind of just like a really nice, neat, transparent, shiny color. So it was just really neat, and it was different. I really liked that color with this palette. And you'll end up with 6 of these guys. And the numbers vary on the ginkgos and everything, because there again just depends on how much I have in my stash, and I want to make sure that I get it all split up to where everybody has enough to work with. Next item are your 4mm fire polish again. This one I just called dark green. And it almost looks kind of like that snake effect, similar to the 5mm that we get for the bracelet itself. But it's like a dark green, and it's almost got like a black wash to it. So it's just, there again, something really interesting and neat to work with. In this one you get 28 of those. The next item, you actually get a full strand of these guys. Now on this particular strand I think there's only 49 beads on it, so I will add that extra bead to it, but I'm going to give everybody a total of 50 beads of these, and these are just glass drucks, and I just called the color transparent turquoise because I'm not sure exactly of the color, a color name, but it's just a really light turquoisey color that went really well with everything. So you'll get a total of 50 of those. And then the next item is just something that was fun in my stash. I'm like, it goes perfect with the color palette, and it looked like something fun that we can make some really interesting items with this. You'll end up getting 8 of these, and these are just little glass rings, so they're really thin, and just a cute little glass ring, something different. These went really well with the palette also, with it being kind of a you know, it looks like ripples, like wave ripples and stuff. It just reminds me of the ocean sometimes. But anyways, so I just called these round ripple beads because I'm not quite sure what to call them. But they are nice large beads. They have a single hole in them, and they're pretty thick. But it's glass, check glass again. That part I do know. And they all kind of vary a little bit in color. See how this one has a little bit more turquoise to it, whereas these two have a little bit more white in it. So they're all going to vary just slightly. And then you'll end up with 3 of these guys. These are very pretty, very sparkly. These are lantern beads. They are 8 by 7 millimeter lanterns. You'll end up with a quantity of 4 of these, and the color of this is teal. So it's a nice transparent green that goes along with everything. You'll get some more pegos. Pego is a 2-hole bead again, and it's a little bit different than some of the others. The pegos, the holes go through one of the tips of the pentagon shape, so you have 2 holes right there, and then they come out the bottom. So they're a little bit different to work with, but very fun to design with as far as making things when you're using bead weaving and everything like that. Bead stringing, this would be amazing to do like a 2-strand, either a bracelet or a necklace, something like that. Just some ideas for you. But this is the color of turquoise Picasso, and you get 9 of those. And then here is your last ginkgo, and this color is green luster, and you'll end up with 6 of these guys. So that is the first 12 of the additional portion of the Bloom Breeze collection. So meet me back and we'll look at the rest of it. And here are the last 13 items that you get in the Bloom Breeze collection that will be available on my Etsy shop probably by the time this video airs. So make sure to go to the link down below if you're interested and get yours today, because there's only 5 kits that I can only put together. So I'll go through the next little portion of this. So this portion is going to be a mixture. You're going to get 3mm mixtures. So this is part of it. And these are just check drucks. And you can see that there's some that look a little bit more beige in color and some that look a little bit more pink in color. I'm pretty sure at some point in time I probably thought these were the same color and I just dumped them together into one container, and then I realized, well, they're probably not the same colors and look a little bit pinker than the others, which is perfectly fine. It is what it is. So in your little mixture you're going to get possibly some a little bit more pink and then some a little bit more beige. It's just one of those things. But you'll get that, and then you'll also get a small assortment of pearls in that same little container. So you'll get approximately, I think it was 66, yep, approximately 66 beads between these drucks over here and then these pearls right here. The next item is a super duo. Now it's really kind of hard to see because they are transparent pink, but I promise these are super duos. And they are, you get about 36 of these guys. So you can make a cute little bracelet with that, or some earrings or something like that. The next item is the next gemstone. So I am going to split up this whole 32-inch strand of sunstone gemstones and give that all to you. You're going to get approximately 64 of these chips. Now chips are just that. They are basically leftovers whenever it's not called a jeweler. What are they called? Okay, the name is escaping me right now. But the people that actually put together and make the stones and things like that, these are kind of the leftovers whenever they're working with stones. And so the leftovers, they just kind of string them together and put a hole in the center of them somewhere. So you can see really good sparkly on that one, maybe. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but that one's really, really sparkly. So you're going to get approximately 64 of these. Now, like I said, chips are chips. Some of these are going to have holes right down the center, like this one right here. And then some are going to have them a little bit off to the side, like this one right here, over here on the right. So that's why I'm trying to give you enough to where you can kind of pick and choose if you like to, if there's something specific you want to make with it. And, you know, or you can use them in earrings and things like that. But I'm splitting up this whole 32-inch strand and giving that all to you. So you're going to get about 64 chips. 64, yep, about 64 chips. The next item was just something, this one's just kind of an extra. It was something that when I was going through trying to look for charms and findings and everything, and I thought, oh yeah, I have some Toho beads. So these are Toho 11-Os, and I don't know the number of the Toho because I did not keep track of those, but this is the color Alabaster Copper Lined. You're going to get approximately 4 grams. There again, it just kind of depends on how much is exactly in that little container that I have. But they are really, really pretty. It's almost got like a really neat shine to them, and I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but that copper line just gives it a really neat shine to the bead. So they're really pretty, and they went really, really well with the color palette and everything. So the findings color is going to be the antique silver for this kit. So these sunflowers are the first charms that you get. So these are actual charms, so you can see the hole up here at the top, and then that is the back side of it. So they're very, very lightweight. They almost feel like they could be like maybe pewter, maybe tin, but it's unknown as far as the metal content. This was actually given to me by a friend, and so I had enough of these left over, and with it being a kit called Bloom Breeze, the sunflower just you know, it fit. So you'll end up getting 2 of these guys. I think that was it. I lost my place on my list. Sunflower charm, 2 of them. Yep, you get 2 of these guys. And then this one there again just kind of went along with the Bloom and Breeze again. So you get, it's kind of a gourd shape, and then they're flowers. And it's just a cute little charm, and then there's the back side of it. And it's one of those things that you can use it as a charm if you want to, or you can use it as a connector. And then you have one connection up here, and then you have multiple places that you could put another connection over here off to the end. So just something fun to work with. This next item is pewter. So these are 17 by 17 millimeter star charms, which will be potentially come in handy if you follow along with Gemstone Orphanage. They just released recently that I will be doing a collaboration with them for the 250th anniversary of the United States, and this might come in handy. Hint, hint, if that's something that you want to get involved with. So it's a collaboration with Gemstone Orphanage, and I'm also working with Becky and Jenny and Colleen and Chrissy. So stay tuned for all of that, and just keep an eye on my channel as well as their channels, and you'll get more information. But this is the star charm that you get. You end up getting 3 of these. So this is actually pewter. So this one I know the metal of, and it's the same on the front and the back. Then we get into our ear wires and the rest of our findings. So this is a fishhook ear wire. These are stainless steel. These are similar to ones that we got in previous kits. They're just a little bit smaller. You'll end up with 2 pairs of these guys. Now these are cadmium and lead free. Yeah, they're cadmium and lead free. They're not nickel free, at least that's not what they listed on the package. But these were just so unique, so neat. Just that floral design, or that, you know, round design there, and you've got the crystal there. You have a nice little loop, and it's a post earring. These were just so neat. I was like, okay, I'm going to have to get these. I know they're not nickel free, or at least they're potentially not nickel free, but they were just so pretty. And then you end up with these, the clear ear nuts to use on the back if you wish to do that. And you'll end up with one pair of those. The next one is another clasp for you to use if you like. It's the large heart lobster clasp. So here's your lobster. So it opens just like a typical lobster would, and then there's the back side. So it's got the same decoration in the front and the back, and you'll get one of those. Then you get a little bit more of an assortment of jump rings. I'm doing 6mm and 8mm jump rings. The 6mm, I know the metal content of this one. They are silver plated, and it's probably brass or iron, one of the two. But they are nickel free. So these are nickel free jump rings, the 6mm, and you'll end up with 4 of these guys. And then you'll get 4 of the 8mm as well. And I'm not sure of the metal content of this one, other than I'm pretty sure that it's iron, but as far as nickel is concerned, I don't know for sure on that part. So you get 4 of those guys. And then the last item that you get is some chain. So this is a whole meter of curb chain, and it is a twisted curb. So you can see how it kind of twists a little bit. But it's a twisted curb chain, and it is a 5x4 by 0.5mm twisted curb chain. It is stainless steel. It's the 304 stainless steel, and you'll get a meter of that. So that is what you get in the Bloom and Breeze collection. So if you're interested, like I said at the beginning of this clip, go ahead and get to my Etsy link down in the bottom in the description and go on over and pick yours up. I will have this priced at $40 this month, and that's only because of the increase in the shipping that is happening that we all know about, I'm pretty sure, here in the United States. So my previous collections are usually $35, and so this one I had to increase it to $40 to kind of help with that difference in the shipping and everything. So go ahead and go on down to that Etsy link and pick yours up today, because like I said, I only have 5 of these available. So very short amount, and it's because it's, you know, all beads from my personal collection. So after this, you will see a brief little supplies needed page again, so we can go over what you need to make the bracelet. And then after that, we'll get that bracelet started. So I'll see you back in just a few moments. The palette 365, and then our project that we're going to be working on today. So we'll end up doing something similar to this. So I'll go through all the different sizing and everything that you need to make it different lengths if you are one that likes to wear a bracelet a little bit longer than what I do. So right now I currently have probably about, I'd say maybe about 8 feet or so on my thread and needle right at the moment. I might have to add some thread further down the project. It just kind of depends. Depends on the length that you need. So we're first going to start off with a stop bead. Now the stop bead we're actually going to use in our project. So pick up one of your 8/0s, and then we're going to pull it down to the end of the thread until we have about 4 to 5 inches left over. I usually use the end of my watch band as a gauge, and that usually gives me plenty of thread to be able to work with. Now I have wire guards that are included in the kit, so if you want to use wire guards at the end, then that will give you plenty of thread to be able to add the wire guard. If you just want to use a jump ring straight through this 8/0, you can more than likely do that as well. There's jump rings in there that should be able to fit in these type of 8/0s that I have in the kit. So right now we're going to start this off with a stop bead, so go back through the 8/0 one more time. And then that puts our stop bead on. To start off, we're going to square stitch on an 11/0. So pick up one of our 11/0 seed beads. We're going through the right hand side of the 8/0 at the moment, so we're going to go through from the left to the right of that 8/0 without creating a knot. And then that puts your 11/0 sitting on top of your 8/0 just like that. Now typically I would go through this one more time. I'm probably going to do that at the end when I go back through to tie off, because I will most likely just use jump rings on this. So I'm going to go back through the 11-0 at the moment, and we're going to get set up to start adding our first fire polish. So our first one we're going to start off with are going to be the 3mm fire polishes. So these are the amounts that I'm going to use in my bracelet might be a little bit different, but I'll just show you the differences as far as what beads to put around the fire polish and the rounds and everything, and then the connections. The connections are slightly different depending on which bead it is. So we're going to pick up a fire polish and then another 11-0 seed bead. We're going to square stitch this on to the 11-0 that's already on the product. So that's what it looks like at the moment. We're going to skip this first 11-0, go back through the fire polish. When you do that, it should sit your bead on top of your fire polish, something similar to that. Now we need to go back through the 11-0 that's down here on the bottom, but we need to make sure that we're going in the opposite side. So right now there is a thread path that is on the left-hand side of this 11-0 going to the fire polish. So now we need a thread path on the right hand side. So go from the right to the left. And then when everything sits correctly, I'm just adjusting that 11-0 so it kind of sits up correct like that. That'll make it a little bit easier here in just a minute if they sit up straight like that. Then we're going to go back through the fire polish. And then we're going to start adding the beads along the side. So, twisting this around a little bit to make it easier for me to hold it. So we're going to pick up 5 15s for our 3mm fire polish. And these are going to be the beads that go around the side. So 5 15s, wrap that around. I usually do the right hand side first, and then I go to the left hand side, but I flip it in my hands. So there's the right hand side. So we're just going through the fire polish right now. We're not going through those 11-0s. We will in just a moment though. Then I flip it in my hands, add 5 more of our 15s. 3, 4, and 5. And then go back up the fire polish. Skipping that 11-0 still. And then that gets your beads on just like that. So now we need to get back up here to the top, but I want to get a second thread path through the beads around the edge. You don't have to do this part if you don't feel like you need to. I like to do it because I like to have extra thread paths on my bracelets especially. Because you never know when something's going to catch on to one of these little itty bitty small 15-0s and it might break the thread. So I'm going through all the 15s that were on the left hand side. When I get down to the 11 down here, that's where we're going to start going through our 11-0s that are on either end of the fire polish. Now I want to make sure that my 11-0 is still standing up straight. So you need to make sure that you're going from the left to the right of your 11-0 down there. And then just continue through your beads that are on the right until you get up to that 11-0 that's up here at the top. Just like that. So that is the first one put on for you. And then of course this is going to be nice and loose and wonky and stuff. We will fix that when we get down to the end of the bracelet. So there is the first bead put on. So go ahead and get caught up to this, and then I'll show you the first connection and we'll move on to the next bead. So now you're caught up to that. Now we're going to do the connection in between the two larger beads that we'll end up doing. So connection is always going to consist of a seed bead, one of the O beads, and then a different seed bead, just depending on what you're adding next. Now, like I said in the last clip, it depends on if you're going to be doing the same pattern that I'm doing, then you would follow these along. I'm going to show you each connection between the different size beads, just in case you want to add extra beads of certain sizes. If you need just a little extra length, then you can add another of your 3mm You've got 5mm, you've got 7mm, you've got the 8s, you've got several of the 12s, you got several of the ladybugs, so it's one of those things that if you need to add extra length, then you'll have plenty of beads to be able to do that. I'm just showing you the connections between the two. So the next one we're going to do is another 3mm fire polish. So we're going to pick up a O bead plus another 11O. We're going to square stitch this guy on. So we pull it all the way down, skip over that first 11O, go through your O bead, so we're square stitching, but we're just doing it with multiple beads. And then we're going to go from the right to the left through that 11O that's sitting on top of the fire polish. Then we're going to go back up the O bead. And we're going to get ourselves set up for the next one in line. So now I'm currently coming out of the left-hand side at the moment, so I'm going to go ahead and go from the left to the right of this 11O seed bead. And then we're going to add on another one of our 3mm. So we're going to pick up a 3mm and another 11O. Oops. And pull that down. We're square stitching this guy on. So we're going to skip that 11O, and then we're going to go back through the fire polish. And then go back through your 11O down here in the bottom from the left to the right, because we have a thread path on the right hand side at the moment. And then when you get your beads to sit correctly, which like I said, I like to try to fix them a little bit there at the very beginning, it makes it a little bit easier to go through them here in a minute. Then we're going to add our 5 seed beads on this side, going through just the fire polish, not through the 11Os, 5 seed beads on this side, through the fire polish, and then you go back through all of your beads and then end up back up here, and then I'll show you the connection in between the 3mm and the 5mm fire polish. Alright, so when you get done with that, this is the way the bracelet should look like at the moment. So now the connection in between the 3mm and the 5mm fire polish is going to be the same. It's going to be an O bead and an 11O seed bead. Now the beads around the 5mm fire polish are going to be different. So we're going to square stitch this guy on real quick. And then go back through that 11O. Now you may be going from the left to the right, it flipped in my hand, so I'm just going in the way that it flipped in my hand at the moment. So just whatever's comfortable with the way that you like to bead. It's like some projects I do from the left to the right, other projects I do from the right to the left, so it kind of just depends on the project. Alright, so now we're going to pick up a 5mm fire polish and put our 11O at the top of this. So we can square stitch this guy on. And it flipped in my hands again, so don't be alarmed that I'm going in opposite directions. Just look at your beadwork. If that flips in your hand just like it did with me, just look at your beadwork, see which way that your beads are going, which way your thread is coming out of that 11O seed bead just before the fire polish or whatever bead that you're adding. And just make sure you go in the opposite direction. And it sounds like one of my kitty cats are sharpening her claws right now. So that was the noise in the background. And then I'm fixing the beads just like this. So they kind of sit a little bit better on there. There she goes again. Alright, so we're going to go through the fire polish, get ourselves set up to add the beads around this guy. And Casper's protesting also. Alright, so the beads around this one are going to be a 15O seed bead, and then 5 of our 11s, and then a 15. So we have 7 beads on the needle now. Come on, focus. There we go. So a 15, 5 11s, and a 15. And then I'm currently coming out of the left side, so I'm going to flip it this direction. So I can keep the beads on the left. There we go. So that's the way it looks. And then we're going to add the beads on the right. So 15, 5 11s, and then a 15. Go back through the fire polish one more time. And I'm not going through any of these 11-Os again, just like what we did on the very first one. So that gets our beads on there just like that. Now we're going to go off to the left because we added that one first. And we're going to go through all 7 beads that are on the side. We're going to go through that 11-O down here on the bottom of the fire polish to make sure that we're going in the correct direction to keep it in the same orientation so it's not sitting flat, it's sitting up straight like you would with a square stitch. Come back through the 7 beads that are on this side of the bead. Okay, now she sounds like she's playing with something. And then end up at the 11-O seed bead up here at the top. So that is how you add your 5mm fire polish. So add on as many of those as you feel like you need. I will be adding on the 7mm fire polish next. So meet me back and I'll show you the connection and the beads around that one. Alright, so to add your 7mm fire polish, it's hard to say apparently this early in the morning, we're going to be adding one of our O beads, but we're going to add an 8-O seed bead this time. So doing the same thing. So we'll get all of these squares stitched on real quick and go back through the O bead. So same process as what we've been doing. You have it sit a little bit better on top of the O bead, makes it a little bit easier. Here in a minute when we have to square stitch on the fire polish. Just like that. And then straighten that up, go through the 8-O. And I have a tendency of holding on to my beads whenever I'm bead weaving like that to make sure that things are sitting correctly and that they're sitting in the right way that I like. Then we're going to pick up one of the fire polish, another 8-O. We're going to add this one just like we've done on the others. So go back through the fire polish. And then go back through the 8-O in a way to where you have thread on either side of the bead. So right now the bead is flipped around. Alright, it's flipping this way. So I'm going to go like this. And then when I get done with that, it should look something similar to that. And have this guy sit up there straight as best as possible. And then we'll go on this side of the bead. So now I'm on the right hand side of the bead, of the fire polish bead. Make sure those are sitting up as best as we can. Now the beads to go around this one are going to be all 3 of them. We're going to pick up a 15, 11, 3/8, an 11, and a 15. So there are those beads for you. Then we're going to go through the fire polish like we've been doing. I keep this on the right hand side at the moment. Flip it in my hand, so now I'm working on the left. We're going to pick up a 15, an 11, 3/8, 11, 15, and then go back through. And just like all the others, we're now going to go back through all the beads here on the left hand side. Make sure that your bead down here on the bottom is sitting up straight, and then go through here and then meet me back over here off to this side. And then I will show you the connection in between the 7mm and the 8mm magnesite. Alright, so I already have the connection on for in between the 7mm and the 8mm magnesite. So it's going to be another 8-O, so we're going to square stitch that one on just like that. Then we're going to pick up our magnesite, put on the 8mm on the other side, and get these stitched on just like we've been doing. I'm going to show you one extra little step at the end of this one that I did with the 7mm too, just in case you feel like you need to do that. So I'm going back through the 8/0 down here on the bottom of the Magnesite, and then go back up through. Alright, so the beads that we're going to add on the sides of the Magnesite are going to be as follows. It'll be 2 15s, an 11/0, 3 8s, an 11/0, 2 15s. So instead of adding 1 15 this time, we're going to add 2 15s, just to give it that little extra bit of length around the bead, since it's just slightly bigger. So I will go through this little section, and then I'll show you what I ended up doing on this last one, just in case you need to help with stability. 3, 1, and 2. Did I do that right? Yeah, okay. Making sure I was following my pattern the correct way. And then go back through the Magnesite bead. Still skipping all the 8/0s at the moment. And we're going to go through the left hand side, because that's the first one that I put on. Go through the 8/0 down here on the bottom, making sure, making sure it is sitting in the correct orientation. It should be like this. Let's see if I can connect on to some of those 15s. There we go. Alright, and then, yeah, because this is kind of sitting a little wonky, so I'm going to show you how to maybe get that to fit a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and go through this 8/0 up here at the top. And then we're going to go through the left hand side beads one more time. Oops. Dropped my needle. And then when I get down to this 8/0 down here in the bottom, what I'm going to end up doing is one of two different things. So if your bead is sitting kind of sideways like this, that usually means you have a lot of thread going through this right hand side of the bead. And there's not that much thread going through the left hand side down here. So what you could do to get that to straighten out a little bit is go through your 8/0. And this is only if you feel like you need to. You don't have to do this step. But go through your 8/0, go down to through your O bead. What we're essentially going to do is create another thread path to kind of stabilize it a little bit better. Then go through your 8/0 down here in the bottom. Go through the O bead again. And then we're going to go through the 8/0 one more time, but this time from the left to the right to get another thread path through there. And then that kind of helps to stabilize it a little bit better. So now it's sitting a little bit easier. So it's just something to do that if you feel like it's just sitting too much off to the side, then that's another option that you can do. So to get back up here to the top, I'm just going to go straight through the Magnesite again. You can go around and go through all the beads on the right hand side if you want to also. I'm trying not to pierce the thread, which I think I did already. And then we'll get ourselves set up to add that next connection point. So that's just something to do, that if you feel like you need to strengthen things around, if you need to go back through these beads one more time, then that would be fine too. These beads themselves, this is pretty much all the rounds that we're going to go through. The one, once we get to the center, then we're going to go through those beads quite a bit of times. So at the moment, this is where you should be. So meet me back in just a moment and I'll show you how to add on that ladybug. So now your ladybug is going to be essentially your connection in between your magnesite and your amazonite. So what we'll end up doing, Kylie sees a bird in the window. What we're going to end up doing first is we're going to add one of our O beads. Then we're going to add an 11O seed bead. Then we're going to add the ladybug. Now I'm going beading towards the center of the bracelet, so I'm going to go through the back side of the ladybug, coming out the nose. You can always go the opposite direction too. You can go from the nose and then come out the backside. So whichever one you want to do. Then we're going to add another 11O on the other side of the ladybug. Then we're going to get set up to add our amazonite. So our amazonite is going to have an 8O. So pick up an O bead again and an 8O bead. And then that is our connection. So this is a whole lot of beads. So we're going to go back through everything again. So we're going to skip over the 8O, then go back through the O bead, the 11O, the ladybug, 11O, O bead. And then we're going to wrap around the 8O down here on the bottom. And then we're going to go through these beads one more time, at least. You may have to go through these beads 2 more times, which is perfectly fine. It just depends on your tension, and it depends on how they're sitting. If they're sitting the correct way, you like how they're sitting, how the beads are sitting and everything, then that's perfectly fine. Then the two pathways should be just fine then. And I know this is getting a whole lot of thread through here, but this is one reason why this bracelet's going to use up a lot of thread, is the amount of thread paths that we put through our beads. So that is, yep, 1 on either side. So now that has 2. And then that one has 2. Yep. So now we're going to go back up through the beads to get ourselves set up to add our amazonite bead. So after you get all of that on, I'll show you how it looks, then I'll break, let you get caught up to that, because that was a lot of beads that we had to add, and then we'll add our amazonite. So that is the way it should look at the moment. Alright, so this is going to be the center of the bracelet. So what we're going to do first is we're going to add our amazonite bead, which these are very nice, very sparkly, pretty amazonite bead. So we're going to add one of those. Then we're going to add an 8O. Now on the amazonite bead, you're going to have a front and a back. So we're going to add the front 8O first, and then we'll add the back one. And I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. It'll make a little bit more sense. Go back through the amazonite, square stitch this guy on, and then, like we've been doing, just make sure you go through the bead down here on the bottom in the opposite way, or basically the same way that thread's going in at the moment. So that way there's a thread path on either side of it, of that 8O seed bead. Then we're going to go back up the amazonite, and we're going to add a second 8O seed bead here on the top. We'll go back down the amazonite. Don't go through the 8O down on the bottom. And then we're going to add a second one down here on the bottom. And then go back up the amazonite again, skipping through all the 8Os. Make sure you're not going through any of them at the moment. And then when we get these to sit in the orientation to make them a little bit easier to work with, then it'll be a little bit easier to understand which ones to go through here in a minute. There we go. And those are kind of sitting up just about right. So I'm going to start off here to the right hand side. We're going to add quite a bit of beads this time. So we're going to add a 15, and we're going to add 2 8s, 3 11s, 3 15s, Then we're going to go backwards. We're going to add 3 11s, 2 8s, and a 15. So there are the beads. You have a 15, 2 8s, 3 11s, 3 15s, 3 11s, 2 8s, and a 15. Now, since we already have, we're going to have a front and a back, we're going to go through this twice and do the same thing on the right hand side twice. So that's loop number 1. So we're going to add the same amount of beads again. 2 8s, 3 11s, oop, that one's kind of thin. 3 8s, or what are these, 3 15s, and then 3 11s, 2 8s, and a 15. Just double check and make sure I have all the beads on there. And then we're going to go back through this one more time. Just make sure you're not going through those 8-0 seed beads at the moment. And then these beads need to either sit to the front or the back, it doesn't matter which one at the moment, to the other round. And then I will add 2 more rounds on this side, and then since it's the same thing, I'll just do that off screen. I'll add 2 more rounds of the same beads on the left hand side, and then I'll meet you back up here at the top of the bead again in just a moment. Alright, when you get the 4 loops on, it should look something similar to this. So there's the left side and the right side. And then all I did up here at the top was I just oriented my 2 8-0 seed beads to where you kind of have a clear top and or front and back to them basically. So like I said in the beginning, it'll make more sense here in just a moment. And then the bottom side is kind of sort of the same because we have the ladybug attached to one side already. So I'm going to go ahead and start off here at the front. We're going to add some extra beads around the side here, and then that way we can connect these two together, the front and the back together with the extra beads. So I'm coming out the middle here of the Amazonite. I'm going to go ahead and go through that front 8-0 seed bead, the next 15-0, and the next 8-0 sitting to the left. So I'm beading counterclockwise at the moment. And then this is where we will square stitch on the same bead that you're coming out of. So if you're currently coming out of an 8-0, then we're square stitching on the same bead. So just pick up an 8-0, go back through that 8-0, and move to the next bead. And then do the same thing. So an 8-0, square stitch that on, and then we're on 11-0s, so we'll pick up an 11-0 and square stitch those guys on. And we're just doing this one side at the moment. So that's all you do on this little section. So the only thing you have to be careful of is when you get to the 15-0s here in the center, we're not adding 15-0s on either side of our center 8-0 seed bead. So these two 15s right here, we're not adding those. So once you add your second of your 8-0 down here, go through that 15, the 8-0 that's on this side of the Amazonite, and then that 15, come back out your 8-0 here, and then start square stitching on those beads again. So once you get all of that square stitched on, I'll meet you back up here at the front. Alright, when you're done square stitching all of those beads on, it kind of looks like a hot mess at the moment. So we're going to make it look a lot nicer here in just a moment. Alright, so I'm currently coming out of that first 8-0 seed bead that we started out in. So this is one of the original 8-0 seed beads that we square stitched on. I'm going to connect this top, the one that's here in the front, to the one in the back, doing the same thing. So we're just going to connect to those two. We're going to go from the left to the right to the one that's on the back, making sure we're not going to wrap around any of the other beads that were sitting there, and then just come back around through that bead one more time. And that just connects the two. It just helps to kind of stabilize them to know, okay, these two are the ones that are in the front and the back, and so on. So now we're going to connect these middle guys that we just square stitched on to the back side. So go ahead and go through the 15 that's sitting there, and the first 8-0. I'm going to twist this in my hands a little bit, make it a little bit easier so you can see what I'm doing. So we're coming out of that first 8-0 that's on the original round. We're going to go up through that first 8-0 that we square stitched on, so the first one there. So I'm actually going towards myself at the moment. Then we're going to move to the back side and go down the square, the 8-0, whoops, down the 8-0 that is on the back side here. And then in doing so, come on, focus, there we go. In doing so, I can go ahead and move on to the next bead. And then when you do that, that now connects that first 8-0 to the back side. So now all you have to do is go up this 8-0 up here, which is the second one that we square stitched on, and then wrap that around by going through the 8-0 on the back side, and then proceed through the next 11-0, just like that. And then that puts that 8-0 connected. So I'll do an 11-0 here. So now we're on the 11-0s. So we're going to go up through the 11-0 that we square stitched on. So we're beading towards ourselves at the moment. And then beading away from ourselves, going through the 11-0 that we just came out of and the next one in line. And then this helps to kind of tighten everything up. It helps to connect everything together. And then now we're on to the second 11-0 there. And I'm doing this kind of slowly, one to so you can see what I'm doing, but two to make sure that I'm not wrapping thread around anything, because it's very easy to do that. And just make sure that you're going through the next bead in line. Try not to go through 2 beads. If you go through 2 beads, you'll have to back up. So now I'm on the third 11-0. And then go through the third 11-0 over here, and then end up coming out the first 15. There we go. And then do the same thing with our 15s. Go through that first 15 towards yourself, and then go through the 15 on the right hand side, which is the back of the bracelet. Come on now. And then end up through that middle 15 there. When you pull that down, it should do just that. So see how it's kind of cinching everything together? It's like we're zippering it together or something just by adding that extra round of beads. So go ahead and get this little portion done at the moment, and then meet me back and I will show you how to get these two connected, and then we'll continue on to the rest of the bracelet. Alright, so when you're finished with that half, then it should look something similar to that. So see how nicely it's cinched together now. So now we're down here on the back side of the bracelet, coming out of that last 8-0. So I just added that last 8-0 to each other. So we want to connect these two middle 8-0s. So go ahead and go through that 15 that's sitting in between, and then go through the 8-0, which this is the back side one. And then we're going to square stitch those two guys together. So we're going to go through the 8-0 here in the front, which is the one that is attached to the Ladybug, like that. And then doing that carefully because I don't want to go wrap around anything, and then go back through the 8-0, and then proceed through the 15 and come out that next 8-0 to get yourself set up to do the other side. And then see how that kind of just cinched those two together and made it a lot easier to kind of work with and everything. So now you're set up for the next, doing the same thing on this side. So go through that first 8-0, beading towards yourself. Hold it to where it makes more sense. And then go back through the 8-0 that's on the loop that we're working on, which is the back side. And then proceed through the next bead, which in this one is an 8-0. So you just do the same thing. So that's all you do on this step. So go ahead and complete this other side over here and then meet me back and I'll show you how to add on the first portion of the rest of the bracelet. Alright, so one more thing to show you, and then all you have to do is just start adding your beads on the other side of the bracelet in the same fashion that you did on the first side. So I have timestamps down below that if you feel like you need to go back and look at what beads need to go on which center bead, you know, what connection beads and stuff like that, and then you can go back and look at those if you need to. So we're currently coming out of the back side of the 8/0 backside one. So right now, the front side is where my ladybugs are attached to. So I want to move to the front side. So I'm just going to essentially act like I'm going to square stitch this on and just go from the back side to the front side. And then that, without looping around anything, and then that gets you set up to add your ladybug. So as a refresher, your ladybug is a O bead, an 11/0, our ladybug, but this time we're going to go from the nose towards the back side because I want this to be a mirror image of each other. So we're going from the nose towards the back side. Then we need another 11/0, an O bead, and then get ourselves set up to add the Magnesite. So we're going to add an 8/0 after that. And then you just go back down all of these beads 2 more times, because if you remember on the previous clip that we went through these beads a second time to give it a little bit more bead, a little bit more thread through it, and to help stabilize it and everything. So that's how you add your ladybug on the other side. So like I said, just go ahead and continue on, and depending on how many that you added on the front side, go ahead and add the same beads in the same orientation if that is what you would like to do. And then meet me back and I'll show you how to add your clasp that comes in the kit. Once you get everything all threaded on and then tie off your ends and everything, then your ends should look something similar to that. Now, like I said in one of the other clips, you're always welcome to use one of the wire guards here on the end instead of either the 8/0, or you can put the wire guard on top of the 8/0. If you're looking for just a little bit of length to your bracelet to give you just a little bit extra room, then you can always add that wire guard and then add your jump ring to the wire guard and then your clasp if you like. So that'll give you a little extra length as well, rather than just adding one of, you know, another 3mm or 5 or so on and so forth. So I've already put the clasp in on one side because I wanted to make sure that the jump rings were going to fit through the 8/0 seed beads. So I would always suggest that if you're going to do it this way, I would always suggest to put the jump ring on the 8/0 seed bead first, because you always want to make sure that that goes through the seed bead, and then you can add whatever it is that you're wanting to add after that. So in my case, it's going to be the other half of the clasp. So I'm leaving the clasp attached and then just slide it through the other side. Now this part can sometimes get a little difficult when you're using a magnetic clasp, but we want to try to close that jump ring up without dropping things. So this might take me a minute. Actually, you know what? I'm going to use my flat nose on this side and hold it on the edge. And then I can drop it again. Then I can grab onto the other part with the other pliers, the chain nose pliers. Alright, and then twist those guys closed. Now these are stainless steel jump rings that you'll get in the kit, and you're actually going to get 2 different sizes. So I am using the 4mm size just to see what it looks like. I might end up changing it to one of the other sizes that I have in there. So you'll have multiple sizes to try to get a little extra length also. But that's what it looks like with the 4mm on. So, like I had said earlier, I'll try it on real quick and see how it fits on my wrist, which is almost a perfect size, because it just goes up my wrist just a little bit, goes down my wrist just a little bit, so there's a little bit of wiggle room and everything, so that is a really good fit for me. So let's see what the actual size is on the mandrel, so that way it'll give you an idea for that as well. Oops. This one comes out to be a little bit smaller than what I typically am comfortable with. So it's somewhere around a 6.5 inch. So 6 1/4, 6.5 inch, something like that. So that is this bracelet for the Creative Color Collection on palette number 365. That's the Bloom Breeze Bracelet, inspired by palette 365 from the Creative Color Challenge. The Bloom Breeze collection and kits are now available in my Etsy shop if you'd like to create along with me or explore this palette in your own designs. And stay tuned, the next Creative Color Challenge is already underway, and I can't wait to see which colors we'll be working with next.